always a good time when you can talk to some of the icons, the pioneers of the cigar industry. And we're hanging out fourth generation in the cigar business. It's Drew Newman from JC Newman Cigars. Drew, how are you, my friend?
Doing great, Jim. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Yeah, that's got to be amazing. I mean, not only are you a fourth generation owner of this magnificent, sort of treasure of the cigar business, you're also a general counsel for the company. And I guess the first question is, talk about being born into a responsibility, with the Newman name, with the cigar industry. What was it growing up being Newman?
Sure. Thank you, Jim. So my great-grandfather, J.C. Newman, founded our family business in 1895. And four generations and 127 years later, we are very proud to be the oldest family-owned cigar company in America. And I'm coming to you from actually the last traditional cigar factory still operating in the United States, our historic El Reloj Cigar Factory here in the cigar city of Tampa, Florida. And this is a place that I've been in all my life. We're a family business. My great-grandfather passed the company down to my grandfather, who passed it down to my father and uncle, who are in the process of passing it down to my cousins and me. And as a family business, it's something that I just grew up in. As a kid, when we gathered around the table for Thanksgiving or other holidays or birthdays, invariably the conversation would steer towards cigars, the company, the family business. On school holidays and when I was sick and needed to stay home from school, I came to the factory and ran around this building for as long as I can remember as a little kid. And
Yeah.
so our company, our family business has been a part of who I am, who our family's been for forever now. And it's a real privilege to be able to continue the tradition, not only of our own company, but also continue the tradition of cigar making in the United States.
Yeah, it's so when we talk cigars, we sort of forget, some of us, especially the younger generation, that Tampa, where you are, Ybor City area, that esteemed a hallowed neighborhood, that was the cigar capital of the world outside of Cuba. When after the revolution, and it's sort of fallen by the wayside. A lot of great cigars being made, outside of the United States. How do you sort of compete or keep that American Tampa tradition alive?
So, Jim, as you know, the United States has a rich cigar tradition that dates back to 1612 when the first commercial crop of tobacco was grown in the Virginia colony. And at the time of the American Revolution, cigar tobacco was grown in all 13 of the colonies and 13 of the original states. And founders like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson grew tobacco. It was very much a part of the culture and the identity of our country from its very earliest days. And certainly here in Tampa, Tampa didn't exist before the cigar industry when it moved here in 1885 and 1886. And quickly, the cigar industry just blossomed in Tampa and caused our city to grow from 600 people in 1880 to more than 100,000 a few decades later. And Tampa was the largest city in the state of Florida and really south of Atlanta simply because of cigars. And at its heydays, you just mentioned, more cigars were rolled in Tampa than anywhere else in the world. And at its peak, it was about 500 million cigars were rolled by hand each year, which is about 25% more than the number of cigars consumed in the United States today, rolled from every country around the world. So Tampa has a rich history of cigars, but it kind of declined starting in the 1960s and 70s when the labor costs to hand roll a cigar in the United States spiked, and folks realized that you could make a hand rolled cigar overseas for cheaper because labor costs were lower. But we're very proud to keep our historic factory open in Tampa and use it to tell the story of American cigar making, because there's a rich history here in Tampa and throughout the United States of cigars.
Now, I think one of the ways which I was really excited to read about in your facility, the reloj factory, which is Spanish for watch, which is the iconic watch, that overlooks the entrance in the factory over there, is the what's called Newman Lake and the Reloj District. What are you guys
Sure.
doing over there?
So what we realized was that our El Reloj factory here in Tampa, which is 112 years old now, was now the last traditional cigar factory still operating not only in Tampa but in the United States. And so what we realized was if we didn't tell the story of cigar making here in the cigar city and in America, nobody else would. And we looked around, Jim, and we saw so many distilleries and breweries and wineries in Kentucky and California and all throughout the country, how they've become destinations, and they offer tours and tastings, education, and draw people from around the world. And what we realized was if the spirits and wine and beer world could do that, why couldn't we create a first-class destination for cigar enthusiasts here in the cigar city, here in our 112-year-old cigar factory? So for our 125th anniversary 3 years ago, we restored El Reloj, opened it up to the public, and now we have guided tours every day and cigar rolling classes and a whole host of events. We had 10,000 visitors come through the factory last year, which was just incredible. And it's a real privilege for us to be the ambassadors for Cigar City and for the cigar industry. But to your question, Jim, what we realized was our visitors love coming here to see the art and the craft of cigar rolling, but they also want to know more. They come spend a couple hours with us and they ask us, where do I go next? Where do I go for a cafe con leche or a Cuban sandwich, one of Tampa's traditional dishes, or where can I go sit down and enjoy a cigar? And we don't have space for that in our factory, which is massive. It's almost 100,000 square feet, but it's a working factory. So we had to start expanding and looking in our neighborhood. And so, as you noted, we are growing the El Reloj district around our factory here in Cigar City. And we're restoring a 112-year-old old hotel and bar and restaurant directly across Columbus Drive from the front of our factory. And on the other side of our factory, we are transforming a vacant lot into a beautiful park that's going to be dedicated to the cigar workers of Tampa. And we have more plans to grow from there. But what our hope is to have a first-class destination for cigar enthusiasts to learn about cigars right here in the United States without having to go overseas to Latin America and take your passport and change languages. Just come here to the Cigar City and we can show you how cigars are being hand rolled. So that's what we're doing, and we'd love to have you come and do the next interview live from our factory.
You can count on that. Book it. Absolutely, my friend. And by the way, I am enjoying, speaking of the tradition, I'm enjoying this is your brick house. And
Our brick house.
Yeah, it's the Bricktoberfest 5th anniversary. So I'm enjoying
Nice.
that. Very, very earthy, very smooth. I'm enjoying it very much. So I definitely would recommend that. Now,
Thank you.
now you're not your day job, but you're obviously, you run a company, but you're also a lawyer, you're general counsel, and you can't unfortunately talk cigars and not talk about the FDA and regulation.
Sure.
And it seems like there's some progress being made for those who enjoy a good smoke. Can you speak on that and just speak about the importance and the work that still needs to be done?
Absolutely. Well, cigars are an art, they're handcraft, and it's a traditional product. And in recent years, we've had to do a lot of educating folks at the FDA, a lot of educating policymakers on Capitol Hill about what a handcrafted premium cigar is and what it's not. Because it's very easy for someone who doesn't understand or appreciate or enjoy a premium cigar to just kind of lump all tobacco products together, from e-cigarettes to traditional cigarettes to hookah to cigars and more. And that's kind of what happened when the FDA decided in 2016 to regulate all tobacco products, and to do so the same way by taking the very strict, regimented structure of cigarette regulations and apply them to the entire spectrum of tobacco products, including handcrafted premium cigars. And Jim, as I'm sure you know, that it just doesn't really work because the products are just fundamentally different, starting with the seed and the plant and the species of tobacco. Cigarettes and premium cigars are apples to oranges, and how we grow and cure and ferment premium cigar tobacco is vastly different than other parts of the tobacco industry. And obviously, you can't really compare the production of cigarettes, which uses some additives and other chemicals, and you press a button and out they come, to the art and the craft of hand rolling a premium cigar. And so it's been a lot of work and a lot of education. But the good news is that policymakers and a judge in particular in DC have been receptive. They've actually listened, and they've wanted to know who we are and what we do, and they wanted to look at the data. And what the data show is that cigars and how they're used and the associated health effects are just vastly different than cigarettes and all other tobacco products. As you noted, Jim, there were two big developments last year that I should highlight. The first is that the National Academy of Science issued a very lengthy 500-page report on premium cigars. And they found what we all knew, which is that premium cigars are enjoyed infrequently and by adults. It's not something that someone smokes 10 of a day or even 10 of a week. The typical premium cigar smoker enjoys 1 to 2 cigars a month, probably more frequently when the weather's nice and less frequently when it's snowy and icy and not very pleasant out. And we've known that anecdotally, but now we have the National Academy of Science backing to show that's exactly what the data says. And then because premium cigars are used infrequently and are typically not inhaled, the health effects are vastly different. And the chairman of this very esteemed panel of scientists was quoted by the National Academy of Science saying the health effects of premium cigars are actually relatively modest. Like it's very vastly different than cigarettes that are inhaled and other types of tobacco products. And so having that information, not that we've generated and said, but that an independent body like the National Academy of Science has put forth, is very helpful to educating policymakers and showing them how premium cigars are different. And then a few months after that report came out, Judge Ahmed Mehta in DC, in the federal court in Washington, issued an opinion in the premium cigar industry's lengthy legal case, concluding the FDA made a mistake in 2016 when the agency decided to regulate premium cigars like cigarettes, that it didn't look at the data and overlooked the science showing what the National Academy of Sciences pointed out, that premium cigars are used infrequently and the health effects are very different. And so with that, it's all really given us a sigh of relief, enable us to sort of catch our breath, and with the hope that going forward, FDA and the federal government will tailor regulations to premium cigars differently than other tobacco products, which is warranted. So, our one hope as a company is that we can be in business for another 127 years, rolling cigars 127 years from now, just like we do today, which is just like we did 127 years ago. And with these developments, things are looking a lot better, and it's very encouraging.
So Drew, as a regular guy, a guy who enjoys cigars, goes to the lounge and enjoys, my hobby of smoking cigars, what can I do? What can the average person do that isn't a lawyer, that isn't a shop owner, to sort of make sure that common sense prevails? Is it Is it sending emails to your representatives, to your local governments? What can the average guy do, an average gal do to make sure that we don't lose momentum?
It's a great question. And I think the first thing I would encourage cigar enthusiasts to do is to join Cigar Rights of America. And for a very modest annual fee, you can receive some cigars with your membership and really make your voice heard. And what joining CRA does is it will alert you to any legislation that might be affecting your right to enjoy a premium cigar, such as state bills that might cause cigar shops to close, or triple cigar taxes, or other types of restrictions. And it gives you the tools to speak out to your local state officials and express and educate them on how premium cigars are different, and how it's an art, it's a tradition, and it's a product used by adults. Because what we've learned is that elected officials are very responsive to their constituents, the people they represent, and they don't really want to hear from folks who are not voting for them. And so I can call your congressman all day long, Jim, and talk about premium cigars, but who they really want to hear from is you. And whether it's at the city council level or the state legislature level, or even in Congress, having that voice from their own constituents is very helpful. And most of the times, as I mentioned, we're simply demystifying the tradition of premium cigars, because only about 0.5% of the American population regularly smokes a premium cigar. So many elected officials don't know much about cigars. And so by educating them, and CRA has the tools for consumers to do this, it helps demystify and make elected officials realize that it's a tradition worth preserving, that's enjoyed by adults in moderation.
And before we get you out of here, Drew, so what's next? What's next for JC Newman? What is the next year, 5 years? What's next for you guys?
Well, what's next is, first of all, continuing our commitment to quality. Why are we the oldest cigar company in the United States? Why have we been around for 127 years and 4 generations? It's simply because it is our passion, it's our drive to make the best cigars every day. If you ask me, Jim, what keeps me up at night, I'll tell you it's worrying that something goes wrong with one of our cigars. Because they're all hand rolled, there's 1,000 points in which something can go wrong in terms of how the tobacco is sorted, how it's fermented, how it's stripped and rolled and aged and packed. And if a cigar is imperfect, if it doesn't draw well, if it doesn't taste right, if it burns unevenly or anything else, and you've paid your hard-earned money for it, you might not try one of our cigars ever again. And so an unwavering commitment to quality really defines us as a company. And then in addition to building out our visitors experience here in Tampa, we're working to make our products better. We're improving packaging, we're improving blends, we're buying higher grades of tobacco that we're aging longer. And so some of the stuff can be seen and appreciated, and such as the construction that we have and the restoration work around our historic factory in Tampa, and others, it's just going behind the scenes to making sure that we aren't complacent. Because if we want to be around for another 127 years, we have to invest in quality and make sure that we don't lose focus on that. So we have some new cigars coming down the pipeline here in Tampa, in Nicaragua, and elsewhere. But I think what really drives us is just an unwavering commitment to quality.
Well, it's a passion project, and literally your name is on every stick. It's Drew Newman, 4th generation owner and general counsel for JC Newman Cigars in Cigar City. It's still Cigar City, my friend. I love this brick house. I would encourage you at that. Where can we find you? Social media, internet, website? Where can we find the company?
Sure. So our website is jcnewman.com, and we're all over social media with JC Newman. I'm also on Instagram at American Rolled. And please come visit us here in Tampa, and look forward to doing the next interview live from our rolling floor as we're rolling cigars all around us here in Tampa, Jim.
You make a good argument, counselor. Thank you very much. Enjoy it. Have a great day, and thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you.